All right, I'm unmuted, I think, here now. Can people hear me now?
I can hear you.
Okay, just about
Yep,
10 more
that's good.
seconds. 10 more seconds, we'll be live here. Okay, I have 7 o'clock. I have everything online and everything recording, as well as on live streaming on YouTube. So I gave everybody the order of committees and nobody asked for a change. Borough property first, public works second, ops and policy third, and public safety last. So if everyone's okay to start, we can begin with borough property. Anybody have any problem with that? Let me know. Oh, Mr. Thielacker, do you want me just to get started then with borough property? Just have about 30 seconds worth of something to say.
Yep. Yeah, go ahead, Steve.
Okay, I gave you a couple of notes that really are just reminders, outstanding items that have been on this committee. The first one's been on this committee for a while. Just a reminder that we want to regularly check playground equipment. The second one, I will not repeat every month, but I just wanted to make sure it stood out to everybody. A reminder long-term that we did get $14,400 from PennDOT for Ryan Glen Park, because they are eventually going to tear up Ardmore Boulevard at that vicinity and go into a portion of the park. And DCNR had given the borough a grant for that park and required PennDOT to reimburse us what they felt was the correct amount that of the work that they were going to do. Now, PennDOT is still going to rehabilitate the park when they're done, but that $14,400 is something that the borough can use on that park or another park. And if you recall, when we discussed it in the past, council decided it would be best to see what PennDOT does first, so we see how badly they rehab the park when they're finished, in case the money's needed there. That way it can be used there. Otherwise, it can be used somewhere else, but DCNR does want to have a review and approval of what we're going to do with the money. So I'm just going to keep that on this agenda long term. I will not mention it every month, but it will show up every month in my notes, just so you have that. And that's all I have to report, unless you have a question for me about that issue.
I don't have anything on that right now. No. Yeah, that's all you got then, Steve. Two rec board items. We talked about adding Chris Mamikos to the rec board as an alternate. You had it on there. I guess we got to check operations and policy to see how that would work, right?
Yeah, I'm not sure. It may not be a problem. I just wanted to point out, and I did this in ops because that's where you usually handle something like this. I wanted to point out that there is an ordinance covering the rec board, and it stipulates that there are 9 members. Now, does that mean you can add or subtract or have an alternate? I don't know. That's not something I can answer. But right now you do have a full 9 members on that board. So adding him would be either a 10th member, which is not in the ordinance, or it would mean having him as an alternate, which also is not in the ordinance. That doesn't make it wrong. I just wanted to point that out to you folks.
Yeah, that sounds good. With the planning commission, other boards having alternates, I don't think I quite realized that technically there aren't alternates on there, but we can, like you said, we can add that. I don't think that's a big deal. There's also potential, they're checking with a couple members that haven't been as active to see if they still want to be involved. So there might be a full opening, and it might not be necessary anyways.
Yeah, I would agree with that. This is Jack. The chances, the turnover on those boards there's a fair bit of it. So, to have someone as an alternate and getting themselves up to speed might be a nice idea.
I'll put it on for a vote then on the August 19th meeting as naming him as an alternate to the board, unless there's something else that comes up before then.
Yeah, I agree as well. I think it'd be a really good thing to do.
I agree.
I have a question. Do we have to maybe stipulate if there's like one board member doesn't show up that he automatically has voting rights if they're like less than if only 8 show up of a regular and he shows up? Should we define what an alternate actually means, basically?
Yeah, definitely. If we're gonna add an alternate spot, definitely. 'Cause that's how the planning commission, I believe, works. If a normal member doesn't show up, the alternate member, would then take on the responsibilities of a normal member. And if everybody's there, then the alternate kind of just
Perfect.
doesn't get
Yeah,
to
makes
vote.
perfect sense. We maybe should define it somewhere.
The difference with the rec board is planning commission, zoning hearing board, where they have alternates. They, and even environmental advisory council, they have specific things under planning that they're required to do. So having an alternate vote or not vote for rec board really isn't that big a deal either way. It's really up to the board and how they want to do it. They can create their own rules and have you approve it if they want. It's up to them, up to you.
Yeah, that sounds good. Anybody else have anything else on that before we move on?
No, I don't have anything.
All right, we'll move on to the engineer and forms report. Dave, are you on?
Yes. Thank you. The CITF grant for the pool area, the spray park has been completed and is operating. We requested a change to the remaining grant funds to be switched for electrical upgrades at the pool lodge because there wasn't enough to do the air conditioning in full, but the electrical upgrades are required as a phase 1 of that process. We have now just received today tentative approval from the county to do that, but they are requesting some paperwork changes that I will get to tomorrow. They have what they call a uses of sources table that has to be redone, and that will allow the change. Once that's done, then we will proceed on getting quotes or price or bids for the electrical upgrade. The DPW roof contractor is scheduled to start the project in September. They have received contracts. We have not gotten the contracts and bonds back yet, but as soon as they're back and signed, they will then submit what they call submittals to show that they are using the material that was specified in the bid. We get those, review them and approve them, and then they can get started on the project. And finally, the blight remediation grant application was submitted to DCED for the demolition of 21 Marion. However, we will likely not hear of its approval until November, at least November of this year. Even if it's approved, if the property has, I didn't know what happened yesterday or 2 days ago at the sheriff's sale, if anybody bought the property or not. I don't know how to find that out. But if somebody bought it, then there's certainly hope that someone will renovate it and we won't have to tear it down. But if they didn't, then we still have this application pending to demolish it if it continues to deteriorate. That's all I have, unless there's any questions.
I have more of a comment, but I think that we should resort to raising that structure as an absolute last resort. If we can get somebody to reinvest into that property, that should be the ultimate goal. And I think we should try some efforts to identify the purchaser and maybe just confirm with them what their intentions are as soon as possible.
Frank, I would like to, I would chime in on this.
Yep.
I don't want to go too into details, but the bank, I believe, bought it back as this is my main source of business. So in case if I am going to be the purchaser down the road, the bank did buy it back. So it's been bought and sold by different mortgage companies. So at this point, I mean, even if there was a demolition permit issued tomorrow, I'm sure the bank would be fighting it. So I don't think I agree with Frank, and we shouldn't be demoing any building or property in the borough of Forest Hills. We need all of them standing, and in hopes that any investor will come along and reinvest in the properties in our borough. So I agree, and that's all I have to say on this matter.
Yeah, no, I think we're all on the same page.
Yep.
No one definitely doesn't want that to happen. We only even approve that permit or application is kind of a last resort. But I don't think we're going to worry about that, hopefully here.
Okay. Very good. Thanks.
Anybody have anything else for Dave? Sounds good. We'll move on to the foreman's report. He doesn't have one. Anyone have any questions for the public works foreman under a borough property?
I have a quick note.
Go ahead, Patty.
I was going through the bills today, and the senior center had a $547 electric bill for the past month. I just wonder if the public works guys are using the senior center, if they could let me know why it's quite so high. That seems really exceedingly high for that small of a space. So I just wondered if someone could get back to me about that.
Patty, I actually drove by that the other night, and there looks to be lights on inside. I actually was going to bring that up later on, but since you brought it up now,
Well, I don't know
it
if
looks-
I would like to see if Jimmy Thielacker would tell me what he thinks might be the situation there, if you know.
there's lights on 24/7 inside the building. That's what I'm saying. I drove by at night and saw that there were lights on inside the building.
Oh, go ahead, push button. I got it. Go ahead.
Hi, Patty.
Yeah,
There shouldn't be any lights on, but there's 3 of my guys that I've been instructed to keep separate from the other crew.
mhm,
That is their home base.
okay,
over there. Okay, there's no windows there that can open. So you know how hot it's been. So they have the air, they've been using the air conditioning over there,
okay.
you know, for lunchtime, you know, and right in the morning, because I call them and tell them what to do and stuff, you know. So that's probably why there's a higher electric bill over there.
Okay, well,
So
just,
until I'm allowed to put my guys back together again as one group, you know, I'm keeping them separated because we pulled them out of the other buildings because we started renting the facilities and the swimming pool got back open.
okay. All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Check in on those there.
But I'm gonna, hey Patty.
Yep.
I'm gonna check with the guys and make sure they're shutting the lights off when they leave. So, okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anybody have anything else on that before we move along? All right, Steve. The last time I had was just, I wanted to check on, just kind of see where we're at with some of these. Obviously, we're still in the capital improvements plan development phase, but just check on some of the things that we're going to be getting done. I know we'd approved the work at the rec center around the exterior, right, Steve? But I think that got put on hold again. Is that correct?
Yeah, your dad would know a little bit more about where that stands, but I believe it did get put on hold because of the pandemic. And there really isn't a whole lot of capital items going on right now other than the roof for the garage, because you folks have to sit down and take a look at the bond issue money and have to plan that out, which we're going to do as part of the capital improvements planning process. And that's still a little ways away because we started late. Normally I would be giving you those documents today, but because we started late because of the pandemic, the uncertainty of the bond issue and all that, probably won't get them to you until September or October. But the money from the bond issue is only going to come into actually it might have just come in this week, if I'm not mistaken, into the bank. $501,000, I believe, a little over 500. And Wendy is putting it in the bank and going to split it up and invest part of it in something that earns interest. I mean, all of it will earn interest of some kind, but she'll put it a portion of it into whatever higher interest she can get. So we just got that money right now, actually. So there's plenty of time to decide how you're going to spend it, and you want to plan it out. Make sure that it's something that's going to last through the bond issue, which expires in 2035, and is something you all agree on by vote. So that would be part of the capital improvement process.
Yeah, no, that's fine. Even if like the exterior of the rec center we hold off on for now to see if, in our discussions we find other things that need done up there and we do all at the same time. I don't even have a problem with that. I kind of just want to make sure we're just still thinking about what we're going to get done. That's all. And then the last thing, actually, I don't have anything else. I just wanted to mention the Britton Road sidewalks we're going to discuss. That's under Public Works, correct?
Ask for it to be placed under Public Works, yeah.
That's what I thought. All right. That's all I got for borough property then, if no one has anything else.
Okay, well then, give me a few seconds, we'll move to Public Works. I just want to save my information here that I took notes on. And I'm good for Public Works, Mr. Gorel, if you're okay.
Ready when you are, Steve.
Okay, great. I only have just one item, and that's a note from Three Rivers Wet Weather. As you know, that's the organization that's working with Alcoasand and the communities that are part of Alcoasand to work through the whole sanitary sewer issue project. And they just sent us an update saying that essentially the health department, DEP, and municipal representatives have been meeting virtually to finalize the next round of consent orders. They are working on an updated consent order. That's not done yet. I know that Mr. Gilliland and Glenn Engineering will keep us apprised of anything important, but you can take a look at that note there. That's all I really have. And I don't have anything else to report, Mr. Gorel.
Okay, Dave, you want to give us your report?
Yes. A lot of this is repeats from previous months. The 2019 paving project, we still have a small section of defective, but that will be milled out and repaved when they do the 2020 paving project. That is now, the water line will be completed next week on Cherry Valley Road. El Grande was notified several weeks ago to get it on their schedule, and it is on their schedule for mid to late September. So that's when we're going to have our paving project start this year. Any questions on that before I go on? If not,
Yeah, Dave, I did actually. The Watt Lane issue. What's you're saying El Grande is now going to fix it, or what's going on?
Yes, El Grande is going to fix that because Victor Paving, who did the work, is out of business. They subbed the contract to El Grande for this year, and El Grande has agreed to take care of that for Victor. I don't know what arrangements they made, but that's none of our business. But El Grande, while they're here doing the work, will take the milling machine over, mill out the one section that was bad, and repave that when they pave.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, nothing new on the P&L investment property where we're going to put the MS4 sediment reduction pond. I know the solicitor has some conversations with them over the last month regarding whether they can get some kind of a tax credit for the donation. But I assume that's been resolved. I was privy to some of the emails between the solicitor and Mr. Silverstein, or whatever his name is, Silversmith. But I know they're working on that. One other item, Jim Thielacker and I inspected the corners of Marion Atlantic and Marion and Pacific in response to a request from a new resident who is blind. She hasn't moved in yet, but she stated that the ramps are needed for her to help navigate the area with her dog. There are currently no ramps at these intersections because Marion is steep, and what would happen is the water would go up the ramp, up the handicap ramp and onto private property, or flood the sidewalk. It would cause icing issues in the winter if they were right on the corner. There is one ramp at Pacific that was installed by the gas company, which has the potential for that kind of problem. Jim was going to contact them to remove the ramp, but we determined that we can put ramps at the intersection. They wouldn't be right at the intersection. They would be on Atlantic and on Pacific, setback about 5 feet from the actual corner, because after Atlantic and Pacific cross over at Marion, they tend to have a little bit of a hump before they go on their way east and west, or north and south, I believe. So we can put in ramps there, but they would not be exactly lined up with the sidewalk, but it would not cause a drainage problem as they would if they were on the corners. So if that's your wish, DPW can do this work in-house. It's certainly something that they're capable of doing. And I think that Jim just wanted to make sure we ran that by the committee before he scheduled the work.
So Dave, my only question on that is, have you discussed that with the actual resident who brought this concern to the board and to you guys? I don't want to put these ramps in if it's not going to work or be feasible for that resident.
I have not. Jim was the one that she contacted, and Jim was going to get back to her and explain that that was our plan and see if that was okay with her. Tom, is Jim still with you?
Hi, Dave.
Hi, Jim. Did you get back to that lady, the blind lady that's going to move in?
No, I think she just moved in a couple days ago from what the office said, because I think she had called up there about something else. So, but no, I'll try to get a hold of her.
Yeah, Mr. Grohl was just mentioning that we should probably run it by her, make sure that our offset idea will be acceptable to her and that she can still navigate as she needs to with that arrangement, knowing that it's in place.
Okay, sounds good.
Yeah, I just don't want to do all the work, Jimmy, and then her say, well, that doesn't work for me because I won't know how far back it is or something like that. So I'm fine with doing it, and I agree with the water issues coming down Marion. So that isn't an issue at all, and I agree with that. So keep going in that direction.
Okay, sounds good.
Yeah, that's what we'll do. And then one other item, which I guess is the next, if you want me to go on to the next item that was added to the report. We did get an email from the county. There is a program in place called the Allegheny County Vacant Property Recovery Program, where people if there's a property next door to them, has to physically touch their property that is vacant and more than 3 years tax delinquent, there is the program where they can acquire the property through this program. And the standard application fee is $3,000 for a property owner to apply. The county is having, for a limited time, reducing the fee to $1,400 for applicants proposing to rehabilitate a blighted structure. However, the applicants will still be responsible for the appraised value, a good faith deposit, and closing costs. There is an application that can be accessed on their website. However, in order for a municipality to participate in this limited time program, it only goes until I believe it's the end of September. September 30th is the deadline for this limited reduction in the application cost. In order for Forest Hills to qualify, you would have to show evidence of a marketing strategy, which in their definition is that we would put it on the borough's website, put it in 3 seat times, which probably isn't practical at this point to get it if it's going to expire September 30th. But one of the three, you either have to put up notices around the town on telephone poles, or put it on your website, or put it in some kind of a newsletter. I think if you just put it on the website, that would be sufficient. So if council chooses to participate in this temporary reduced application fee program, we would need to put the information, and they supplied a sample of what needs to be put on the website. If you choose to participate, then we would need to have direction for whoever does your IT work to put that on your website.
That would be Angelo, and we can have him do that if the committee wants to move ahead.
There's no cost.
So Dave, I have to abstain from that because I cannot be involved in anything of this issue because it's the nature of my business.
Yeah, that's fine. There's no fee or cost involved to the borough other than what it would cost to put it on your website.
Do we know how many properties might be involved with this kind of a program?
I don't know.
An empty lot next to an existing property?
I don't know that. I don't know if anyone has that information because the property has to be not only vacant, but tax delinquent for 3 years.
Dave, aren't they talking about small properties that may be adjacent to some other property?
Yes.
There's a lot of little ones like that everywhere, not just in Forest Hills, but everywhere, really.
Right.
So, I mean, there would be assorted properties here and there.
But we're talking about small empty lots next to existing properties, right?
Yes, or
Yes.
vacant structures.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Your property has to physically touch the property, either beside it or behind it, in order to qualify for the program.
I was just wondering how we might let people know about it if they were interested.
I believe this is something that both Janet and Allison could handle together. Obviously, September is a close time frame, but those would be your two resources in house to tackle this.
Yeah, the program has existed for years. I don't know how many people in the borough have ever taken advantage of it or used it. I know that part of the process is that at some point towards the end, it's about a year and a half process from when you apply to when you actually acquire the property. Towards the end of that process, Borough Council does have to pass a motion to approve it, to approve the transfer of the property through the program. So I don't remember any coming before council before, but it's not a new program. The only thing new about it is that for a temporary time, you can get a reduced application fee. They're taking $1,600 off it.
Yeah, real quick, if I could, we had to do the same advertisement a couple years ago, and this come up. They had some kind of same offer going on, lowered fees, something like that. So this isn't a big deal. I think we should just do it. And we had one interested resident last time it occurred. I don't know if they ever went through with getting a property, but it doesn't have any kind of downside.
Right. Yeah, there's no cost to the borough other than whatever it would cost to put it on your website and pass out the applications, which is nothing.
Website would be no cost, really.
Right.
And I believe we can make the application downloadable from the website, if I'm not mistaken.
I believe it already is. Oh, from your website. Yeah, you could just copy
From
the
our
link.
website. Yep, you got it.
So is that something the committee wants to go ahead with?
I
don't see any problem.
obviously cannot comment, so it would be up to Bill and Jack in regards to this.
I don't see any red flags myself. Looks okay to me.
Bill?
That's my input.
And they don't need to vote on it either, correct? Does the whole council need to vote on it? I don't think so, right?
No.
So
You're not
it
spending any
sounds like,
money.
it sounds like the committee is fine with it, so I would say let's move ahead, Dave, and
Okay.
you and I can work together and let me know what we need to do. We'll talk to
Okay.
Allison, which she's on vacation right now, but when she comes back.
Okay. I'll get the information to you. That's all I have unless there's any questions.
Nope. Not for me.
All good, Dave?
All good.
All right, Jimmy, you're up.
Yeah, you're good.
Yeah, the only thing I have is my list of projects on here. And if anybody has any questions, please ask.
I do, Jim.
Go ahead.
Are we doing any camera work with the on the sewers?
We've done a small emergency stuff, Bill, but no, I've been so busy doing other stuff, I haven't been able to start yet.
So I thought we had a plan of attack on this and that we were going to make sure that we were following through with certain parameters on the length that we were going to do whenever we had the opportunity to do so, especially when it's not raining. I don't want to run into the same problem we did years ago. If you recall, the reason we got this new truck is so we can get out there and get this stuff done. And we need to still coordinate with Wilkins. So I would just ask that we make sure we're staying on track with this program.
Okay. Yep.
All right, Jimmy. I think the next thing on my agenda would be the crosswalk request. I was contacted by Rose Roman of the Roman Bistro. They're obviously working out of tents and doing a lot of takeout orders at the Roman Bistro. So her servers and her employees are having to cross Berkeley. and a lot of traffic is racing down the hill from the residents on Berkeley, and also the exiting traffic from the gas station behind the Roman Bistro, and racing to get to the green light. So I don't know if we can put something up temporarily, paint lines. Obviously, this is a extraordinary time, and it's obviously unforeseen, and no one knows how long it's going to last. But I mean, everyone's safety, both the residents on Berkeley and people that are using the gas station in Forest Hills, and the employees of the Roman Bistro, and even customers, I guess, in that sense, are obviously a concern of mine. And when she called me, I figured I would bring it up to the committee. I don't know if we could put, I know that I just got an email about those crosswalk things. I think you press the button. I've seen them in Mount Lebanon and other areas of town where you could press the button to cross over in a more businessy district. And I was actually going to bring that up for our business district down the road, for residents crossing to and from Ardmore to patronize both businesses on both sides of the Ardmore in our business district. So I don't know if there's any suggestions, if Jimmy has any ideas on what we could do over there on Berkeley to kind of help with this issue.
Billy, the only thing I know, I mean, if you guys want us to paint a crosswalk there, we can do it. And I guess we could probably put some type of a sign coming down the hill, warning them that there's a crosswalk ahead. Or
I don't have any objections with a sign. However, I do not want to get involved in putting any extra crosswalks in there. We have presently a top of the line system right on the corner, and that stops traffic for a significant period of time. So if anybody wants to cross other than that particular location, I'm sure that the traffic will stop for a while to keep people from coming down the hill or racing around. I do not want to incur any liability problems with us getting involved in putting in a crosswalk. I believe that would involve the engineer, and we'd have to make sure we went through council. I think the system that's in place now should be used for safety, because again, it's top of the line equipment that's installed there.
Yeah, I mean, I guess my only comment to that is it's all the way at the corner. And obviously they're carrying food and trays of food and bags of food out to customers. So I think that is the main concern. So they're walking out of the door, which is approximately 30 to 40 foot back from the corner. So that's where the issue and the concern comes in, as to her employees' safety. And that's why she contacted me. Her employees have run into issues when they're crossing the street and actually spilled trays, according to her, of food and drop bags because they are crossing the road and a car is coming down Berkeley or making the sharp right out behind Roman Bistro to race to the green light to get across Ardmore before it turns red. So that was the main concern there.
Well, if that's the case, what I would suggest is that we get our engineer involved, we get our attorney involved, and we get opinions from them as to whether or not this would be a wise decision. I don't think it would be. So, and I don't want to be at fault down the line with anything like this. So let's bump that over to Corbel and to Dave, and let's find out what we would actually have to do before we discuss it any further moving forward.
That sounds good.
I could real quick. My dad has an idea he was just talking about here. Might be able to kind of alleviate even having to do that potentially.
We actually have them already. We put them out on the 4th of July. They're not the lime green color. They're the yellow, but they have a black base in it, and it says I think it says stop for pedestrians crossing. I'm not sure. I'd have to look at
The
them.
caution sign, it's caution pedestrians, and it's temporary, right? It's like an A-frame temporary sign, is that right?
It's on a black rubber base, Patty, and you stick it in.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah,
I mean,
Jimmy, I was thinking the same ones. I didn't know if we had those still or if they were gone already. But if we have those, that would be my suggestion. I don't need anything permanent. I don't think anything permanent needs to be there. And hopefully this COVID goes away and we don't have to deal with this down the road. But I mean, you know, it is a huge concern. They're trying to operate a business, and you know, obviously the cars are flying through the intersection, so everyone's safety is at risk.
Again, I think that Mr. Corbel should chime in on this along with our engineer. Anytime we're involved in putting something up, we are ultimately responsible. So I do not want to put the borough at risk by doing this without any type of legal discussion or information, along with our engineer.
It's a
chiming in
caution
as well.
sign. It's a
Excuse
temporary
me.
thing.
As I said, I want this
You're
to
not even on
be
the committee.
done with a legal aspect. I want Mr. Corbel's opinion, and if anybody, if council doesn't agree with that, just say we shouldn't have any legal input.
We don't need any legal input. It's my committee, and I have my 2 members on the committee. So I'm asking them. I'm not asking you.
You cannot do anything unilaterally as a committee. You only have 3 votes. You need 4 votes, and you need to have the vote of council.
Okay. Mr. Burley, do you object to putting temporary caution signs that Jimmy Thielacker has in place?
This is not the vote. We don't vote in committee.
I'm asking him if he has any objections to that.
We don't vote in committee.
Okay, well, I'm asking so they can be placed on for the council meeting then.
I don't see any harm in checking with the attorneys on it. I don't know, but I would prefer to have an attorney's input on it because of the liability that could be created. I don't know.
Yeah,
So
we
I
just don't
feel
know
a lot
for
more
sure.
comfortable if we did that. It couldn't take very long.
Yeah, I agree, Jack, that we should at least get another opinion.
Yeah. There can be issues when you start creating those crosswalks if they're not done right, that you could create a liability for the borough. I don't know. That's why we have Mr. Corbel.
Well, we removed the crosswalk, if you remember, that was down Ardmore and up by the auto parts store, okay, because people would come around the curve there and people didn't have a chance to get across the crosswalk. And we just knew one day somebody was going to get hit. And I've seen people really scramble. So we got to be careful with crosswalks. We got to make sure they're in the right place and that people can see them and obey what's necessary.
Yeah. I'm cool with that. Checking with Corbel.
Steve, can you and get together with Steve Corbel as soon as you can and check that?
Yes, I'll check the PennDOT regulations. They have regulations on crosswalk placement. I remember we went through this on Yoast with the county.
Yeah, Yost Boulevard. That's right. That's where it was going on. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I will I'll look back at my files and see what the regulations are and get a report to council.
If I could chime
Okay.
in real quick, I think also, yeah, if we got to check that with Steve, no problem at all, real quick. But I think the crosswalk's probably too much is what everyone said, right? We were just gonna see if there's any problem with putting a couple caution pedestrian crossing signs up, or, you know, something of that type, whatever we have in stock. If we can put a couple of those signs up, and that would be it, to just be a temporary thing.
I agree that we should, because once the person starts in the crosswalk, everybody has to stop. And if you don't, then there's a major problem.
All right, moving on to number 4. Marcus, do you want to touch on this a little bit? We received a letter an email from, I think Marcus, myself, and Mr. Porco received an email from a resident that just moved on to Donnell Drive. If anyone is unfamiliar, that's right off of Britton Road, requesting sidewalks on Britton. So Mr. Erboldinger did some research on this that he wanted to discuss during the committee.
Thank you. Yes, we all got the same email and I did some research. So first, I confirmed Brinton Road is actually, in fact, a state road. So, and to make it worse, Braddock Hills owns one side, we own the other side. And Patty will talk a little bit later about it because we actually apply for a grant for sidewalks from Brinton, Yoast, and somewhere else. I think Braddock. But in general, sidewalks are like a big problem in Forest Hills because when Forest Hills got set up, as we know, 100 years ago, there were some cars around, but not many. So people who set up Forest Hills did not think about sidewalks. So pretty much Forest Hills has many, many neighborhoods with no sidewalks. And we do actually have ordinances like council. In fact, we could give people, like I think Steve printed out the ordinance, we could give people notice, 30-day notice, you have to put a sidewalk in front of your yard. Unfortunately, sidewalks are not cheap. According to Dave, they're like $60 a linear foot. So if you have like a 40 feet property, you have to pay $2,400. If you have a corner lot or a larger lot, you have to pay $5,000–6,000. Especially now, that's pretty expensive. The borough could do some deals that we pay half of it or things like that. But again, to pave half a mile of a road on both sides would cost around $300,000, pretty much our annual paving budget. So I think at the moment, sidewalks are very expensive and there's not much we can do. Fortunately, Britton Road is maybe a little bit different because it's a state road. So maybe there's a chance with that grant. So Patty, if you can maybe chime in on that.
Yeah, we did file for a active transportation planning grant. Because it is a state road, if we were to be requesting state assistance for placing sidewalks, we would need to have an active transportation plan in place that could justify and identify the places where sidewalks would need to be. And so if we get this grant, having that active transportation plan, identifying sidewalks, bicycle ways, and other kinds of pedestrian things that I mentioned in the grant, would be the first step. The second thing is we did attend the Department of Transportation planning meetings. I believe, Mr. Burley, you went one of them as well, when the Southwest Planning Commission was holding hearings on the transportation corridor plans. And at that time, I think we both pleaded for sidewalks on Greensburg. Well, Greensburg Pike is in pretty good shape, but Brinton Road is not. Many parts of Ardmore Boulevard are not really good sidewalks, and certainly Brinton Road has almost none, along with bus stops that are not protected on Brinton Road, which is really dangerous. So we have made that need known at the state DOT level, which is where it belongs. And I think we can continue pressing for that, and any citizens who have interest in that would certainly be welcome to amplify our voice at the Department of Transportation proceedings whenever the next come up. It's a long process to get them to adopt things like this. Communities sometimes have 5 years of battle before they even get one street. So this is something that we're going to have to put on a priority and press on for some period of time if we're going to get any relief. I do think we should look at especially things like insisting on safe bus stop shelters on Brinton Road. There are a couple of bus stops that are on curbs that I would consider hazardous in the extreme. And there are places where crossing from side streets into those areas is also quite dangerous because of the curves and the speed on that road. So I appreciate the citizens who have come and brought this issue to us. I think it is important, and we do need to put emphasis on that. I don't know if you want to hear from any of the citizens at this time as well or not, but I would like to if you have a moment to do that.
Yes, sorry, Patty. I didn't even know that Sarah was on as an attendee because I joined so late. So if we can move her in to speak a little bit about it. Sarah, obviously you heard it's obviously very costly and it's not an easy project, but we are working as Patty has applied for this grant and we are pushing for the grant. So if we can move Sarah in to speak a little bit about this, that would be
Sure
great.
thing. Yep. So Sarah, I'm gonna, oh, I think,
Already did.
okay. No
Thank
problem.
you.
Hi, thank you so much for the opportunity to talk about this. My husband Jason is here and he's gonna do the talking just because my son is insisting on not staying quiet.
Okay, fantastic. Yeah, thank you guys for the discussion and the energy around this. Obviously, it's very important to us, and we've talked to a number of the some of the community members that are also Forest Hills residents, that their houses exit onto Brinton Road, as does ours. We're at off of Denell Drive. That's directly on there. My name's Jason Okerman. You just heard my wife Sarah, and I'm in the chat. Tell me if you can see this. I just dropped a link with a PDF where we put a few of the notes around where we recommend the most sort of urgent section that could really benefit from pedestrian pathway and some of the justification behind that. So why is this coming up? Also on the first page is some of the other names of residents that are very interested and more than willing to be active in the process of adding some energy towards this initiative. So why is this coming up now? Really in the context of COVID-19, a lot of people are finding that they're needing to stay at home more and trying to still stay active and keep a healthy lifestyle. I think that's something that various parts of the Forest Hills community really support well. And for those of us that connect directly to Brinton Road, it's difficult to take our son, who's just turned 1 year old, out of our cul-de-sac because of not having any access to get back onto the other parts of Forest Hills. So we end up having to drive. And then also Brinton Road is this, there's a section that sort of connects between Edgewood and Braddock Hills and Forest Hills, where other parts of those communities are safer to walk without sidewalks because there's very low traffic. But we're sort of cut off from each other because of this section on Brinton Road, where we can't actually have good pedestrian access, safe pedestrian access to cross over into any of those neighborhoods, including the rest of Forest Hills, nor them into our area. In the PDF, if you can find that link, we've added a few photos that are sort of representative of some of the sections, narrow walkway sections, including the access points to the bus stop that was mentioned. These are all taken during the summertime in daylight and perfect weather conditions. So you can imagine how that gets exacerbated during the wintertime or at night, or certainly under icy conditions where there might not be a lot of visibility for the cars to see whether there's someone around there, and then to slow themselves down to be safe. So that's why we're highlighting this really as a public safety issue first, and then second as a benefit to the community overall. We think that this section of Brinton Road would, if better pedestrian access and probably sidewalks are the solution to that. Oh, there we go, fantastic. So in the last slide, we sort of illustrated how each of these yellow block of communities are disconnected from each other, even though it's relatively safe to walk on those roads, low traffic, low speed limit, but to go between them, you have to access the bright red line, and that has quite a few fairly unsafe points along that line, just narrow shoulder with traffic that comes by. Okay, so thank you for certainly the push towards the WalkWorks grant, and we recognize that this is not an easy process. It's not a slow fight to push for, but we believe that there could be a fairly big impact, both for safety and for community benefit, with a relatively contained section to do probably along one side of the road. There's space to do it. It would just need the right pieces of the puzzle to be in place. And we would like to know from you, what can we do as community members to help move this forward? Thank you very much.
Thank you for that detailed information. I know Frank, maybe you or maybe Bill has a little bit more detail on this. I know this has been brought up numerous times in the past from other residents on Britton Road and other residents actually in Donnell, I believe, before my time on council. So I don't know if any of you guys want to chime in, if there's anything that a resident could do from their standpoint, maybe even Patty. I don't know if anyone has any other information to give to them.
I don't recall. I'm not saying that didn't happen. It's been a while since we've last discussed this. I don't believe that the request has come for actual sidewalks on Brinton before. I know that there's been a call for sidewalks, I think, on Yost. That being said, in terms of what residents can do to help us, I think one of the things I think we need to do is kind of see this, the grant process through to determine whether or not we get approved for funding. Another thing that we might consider doing if that does not come through or it seems to be cost prohibitive. So if I'm hearing you correctly, what I'm hearing is that there's just a lack of connectivity to other parts of the borough. And so I'm not sure if we would perhaps consider doing something along the lines of some sort of a trail or path. At one point, part of our comprehensive plan actually called for something called an emerald. Was it called an emerald path or something?
Necklace.
An emerald necklace that basically connected all aspects of the borough. Steve, would you mind moving him back into so that he, or at least just giving him the ability to, there you go, thanks, and enable his ability to chat. So I'm not sure if that might be a workaround. So I think the first step would be, Jason, to determine whether or not we get approved for funding, because it's obviously a fairly substantial lift in terms of investment. It's not something that will happen obviously overnight. I do agree that it is an important thing to have accessible walkways throughout the entire aspects of the entire footprint of the borough. My only concern would be sometimes on Britton Road, people do come around those bends a little bit quickly. And even if we did have sidewalks, it could become a dangerous place to walk nonetheless. So I'm wondering if maybe some sort of a pathway that connects the various neighborhoods together might be a workaround. So just kind of throwing that out there for your feedback and seeing if that's something that would be of interest.
At one time, there was conversation on going up Yost Boulevard to the Giant Eagle. And I think it involved us in Braddock Hills negotiating some type of pathway. So I don't know, is that still happening?
No. Yeah, because that's a county road. I was just kind of reaching out to Jason to see if that's something that would be. So is the issue more about connectivity throughout the community, or is it as much as it is about just the ability to walk along Brinton Road?
Yeah, I think a large portion of the issue resolves around connectivity to the community. So certainly where we're at on Donnell Drive, and then there's a number of houses that they're disconnected altogether. They just directly drop onto Brinton Road.
You're right.
And the access, and Brinton Road it has excellent bus route that runs through there.
Correct.
It is a central location to not just the Forest Hills, but it's on the edge between several of these communities.
You're right.
So there's a community access piece, and then there's the safety piece kicks in, that given the way that these there is no pathway or other alternative right now. People do, in fact, they bike, they run, they walk. I saw someone with the stroller the other day along that path in order to get to where they're going. And this seems like a contained segment that could be approached. But if there were possibilities to explore an alternate plan that would lead to connectivity back into Forest Hills, certainly we'd be happy to give our input on that as all the different community that's here. Many of whom are listening into this call right now would be happy to give our input on that, and there might be a good alternative. Thank you.
I'm actually looking at Jason's map when I was wondering if there's maybe like some public right-of-way connecting Denell with Edgewood Acres, because it's fairly close. I know it's probably hilly, but I wonder if there's like some public right-of-way connecting. I think it's Washington Road, because that would be like connecting you with the whole Edgewood Acres, which would be nice. So I wonder, Dave, would you be able to check if there's a public right-of-way somewhere? Dave, did you hear me?
Yeah, he's on mute. Dave, you're on mute. You have to unmute yourself.
Sorry, what was your question?
I was wondering if there's a public right-of-way connecting Denell. I think it's Washington Road in Edgewood Acres, just across the little bump.
Yeah, that's a possibility.
Because that would be, I think that would give the community, at least Denell Drive, like a connection to like some bigger Forest Hills neighborhood, which is quite nice to, I think it's better than to walk in than most Forest Hills neighborhoods. I wonder if that's something we should explore.
Yeah, we could look into that. That certainly would be safer than walking along Britton.
So that's my number one concern. I mean, just not that. So first of all, if we can get some funding made available, then I certainly, at a minimum, would like to perhaps see some sidewalks implemented, just at least to get people to the bus stop along Brinton. What I'm hearing is it's more about feeling a lack of connectivity to the rest of the community, but I think it's a safer option, especially for young families, to have that pathway connect to Edgewood Acres. And then there's plenty of ample sidewalk space, much slower traffic in the residential neighborhoods. And I think everybody's feeling a lot safer about that commute, about their walk. And that's just kind of my thought. So maybe rather than try to solution it tonight, because we have a lot of stuff on our agenda, what I'd like to do is maybe see this conversation continued in a committee, maybe have some of the folks who have offered to kind of support this from a residential standpoint, participate and kind of having a say in how we kind of craft this and maybe kind of work in a subcommittee to this one, if it's okay with the chair, and we can kind of start to put a game plan together on that.
Mayor Porco, this is Sarah Gustavo, if I may just mention that I think your idea of pathways is an amazing temporary solution until we get the grant, hopefully, and build the sidewalk and whatever, to support your point, whatever you need to be done. The residents who are supportive of this initiative and who are on the call today are more than willing to support you on this path. So whatever you need, we're here to help and in order to move this forward. But I think the pathway solution is an amazing temporary solution.
All right, sounds good. I mean, just bear with me here for 1 second. I just have to make it clear, right? As much as I think it's a great idea, because it came from me, we have to have council's blessing on it as well. I'm assuming that they would be okay with exploring this further and trying to determine the appropriate next steps. I'm going to go ahead and defer back to the Public Works Chair, Mr. Gorel, for that.
Yeah, Frank, I completely agree with you.
Okay, great.
I do have a question with Jason and Sarah. Your closest bus stop on Britton, correct me if I'm wrong, is all the way back to Wellington, or is there one closer leading down towards the Kogos, down that way, down Britton? I don't know if there's one in between there or not.
There is none. They're almost the same distance, both of these bus stops.
Okay, because I was just thinking the closer, safer route would be to go down rather than up on that blind corner with the overgrowth and all of that. So I agree with Frank. We need to make a subcommittee and explore this further. That would be something that we could put together. Patty obviously is already with the sidewalk grant, spearheading that. So I agree with Frank, and we should move along in that direction.
This is also overlapping with the climate action plan, which is under development right now, because there's a good bit addressing transportation and encouraging public transit and walking and pedestrian and bicycle safety is a significant part of what the Environment Advisory Council is discussing. So that might be another place we could have some of these discussions. Obviously, if we were having community engagement meetings around this, that would be a perfect place to flesh some of this out. More than happy, though, to convene a Zoom meeting around the Environment Advisory Council's climate plan to, put some further thought into this issue and bring it back to this committee, if that would be suitable for everybody.
So if I can just make a suggestion, Bill, why don't we go, Bill Gorel, that is, why don't we go ahead and form a subcommittee? I would assume you or one member of your public works committee would, want to be a part of that. Patty, because she also has some involvement in helping us secure this grant. I'm happy to serve on it if you'd like, and then we'll perhaps invite Jason, Sarah, and any other residents who would like to participate in that process. And then we can kind of have these subcommittees report back to council and maybe start to target some areas where we do the path, kind of outline what the scope of effort would be to implement it, and then talk about how we utilize the appropriate funding or capture the appropriate funding to kind of make it happen.
And Bill, I would be interested as well from public safety point of view.
Perfect.
Thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome. It was a great conversation. I'm glad that we got to discuss it this evening, and I appreciate you guys bringing it to our attention.
You're doing amazing work. You're all very responsive, and I appreciate the time you all took to address this. Thank you so much.
Perfect. All right. Great to talk to you guys, and you're welcome to stay for the rest of the meeting if you are so inclined.
Okay, thank you.
It's pretty exciting stuff.
Thank you, Sarah and Jason. Steve, could you put that on and include myself, Patty, Mayor Porco, and Marcus, please?
Sure, I'll be happy. You want to just make a note of it, you're saying, or?
Yeah, just make a note of it, Steve, so that we can keep in contact with both these residents and put this committee together. Obviously, outside of our committees.
I'm sorry. Okay, so you, Patty, Marcus, the mayor, and then the citizens.
Correct.
Okay.
I believe a few responded in the chat. I'm on my phone, so I can't see it as well as people on a laptop. So
we have several citizens on the chat who said they'd be interested. So I don't know how to capture the chat, but Steve, you know how to capture the chat, right?
I'm sorry.
You know how to capture the names of people who were in the chat who would like to participate, right?
That's a good question, Patty. I'll play around with that while everyone else is talking and see what I can do.
Okay.
Steve, worst case, we could have Sarah and Jason send us another email with the residents on that street that would be interested in participating with us on that committee.
I do have a list of the people who are attending the meeting and their addresses. They had to sign up for this anyway, so I do have that list.
Steve, I already captured it. I'll send you an email with everybody who has volunteered themselves to be involved in that, and then we can kind of proceed from there. Okay, I'll shoot you a note while we're continuing the meeting.
Perfect. I believe that concludes my report, unless if anyone has any other issues or topics.
None here.
None here.
Okay. Steve, it's all yours.
Operations and policy is next. Just give me a few seconds and I'll let you know once I get it saved, what are my notes saved here from the last meeting.
Coral.
Okay, I'm fine.
Go ahead.
Operations and policy, the only thing I had to raise, again, was that issue of the committee assignments and the rec board. I think we took care of that, though, with Mr. Thielacker during his committee, so I don't know that we need to go into that any further. Unless
No,
somebody
I
has a
think that's
question about
resolved.
it. Okay, so that's all I have, Mr. Lawrence.
I believe Patty had an agenda item for this committee.
Yes, given that the Environment Advisory Council reports to the Ops and Policy Committee, they are in the process now of refining a survey, which they would like to time to go to the residential customers the week after the Tree City Times comes out, which it coincidentally will be the last week of August after their committee meets on the 20th. So they have been trading around drafts of a survey to residents regarding the climate action plan and seeking some input from the public about various provisions that are being considered. And they would like to send a postcard out to all of the residents, giving them a link to the website where the survey will appear, rather than mailing out a survey form that people fill out and send back. That saves us the tabulation process because it can all be done electronically. We did a version of this for the comp plan, if you recall, and we had a pretty good response to that process. So people have done it before. And we're making a provision for people who do not want to go online to fill it out, but would like to participate, to have a telephone interview instead. And one of the committee will interview people who don't want to go in on the computer. We also, they want to do a raffle to encourage people to participate. And we had obtained a number of these bamboo cutlery sets to use for Earth Day, and they were not distributed because we didn't do the Earth Day cleanup. So we have these available in hand that were donated to use for prizes if you think it's okay to run a raffle to encourage people to participate in the survey. So they wanted to get your approval to have staff of the Borough Council charged with sending out the survey in whatever manner Mr. Morris deems most effective, and applying the postage to same and the labels, because I think they can do that electronically according to Angelo, but I wanted to get permission to make that request of the manager so that they can support the committee in this work.
Steve?
I mean, we can have the office staff do it. As long as we're not in the middle of doing a sewer billing or something, I don't see a problem with that. If council's okay with us spending our time in it, that's also probably some things that people could take home and do, those who are working from home at different times. So as long as we have a bit of an extended period, you know, to do it, we'd be okay.
Yeah, I could come up and help too. I do like your idea of something, you know, the raffle of something, no matter how small it is, it attracts people. Things work.
We have 6 sets, so we can actually give 6 prizes out for people.
Yeah, no, I think that's a very good idea. That's excellent. Thanks.
Right, the Environment Advisory Council meets on the 20th of August, which is the day after the Borough Council meets. And they will be finalizing all of this at that time and then have it ready to go to Mr. Morris for execution.
Okay. Well, like I said, I can help out with the mailing stuff. That's fine.
That sounds good, Jack. We'll let you know.
I'm sure you will. Is there anything else, Patty? Anybody else? Anybody?
Yeah, Jack.
Yeah.
Mr. Lawrence? I have a comment. I just want to make a comment. I don't want to open it to discussion. On the Public Works Committee, we had items numbers 3 and 4. Number 4, I can see that there was an agreement by the chairs to move it to Public Works. So regardless of whether or not it's in the proper committee, doesn't matter. As to the crosswalk request, I believe that should be under public safety. I heard the word public safety said a half a dozen times. So I think that we got to be a little bit more careful in terms of how and what we put on various committees, and they are properly placed in the future. That's it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? If not, I believe we're set.
Okay, we'll go to public safety. Just give me about 20 seconds. You can count if you want. I know my sons would be doing that. Okay, I'm good.
All right, I'm good. Waiting for you.
The only thing I have, the outstanding item that's on there, the reminder has been there for months. It's something that's in the capital improvement plan and we're working through. So about cameras at various locations, some of that's been done, some of it hasn't. That's just a reminder. I did want to call your attention to an email I had sent out about a week or so ago that came from Campbell Durant via the PELRAS organization about the law that Governor Wolf signed as far as police reform measures. So I copied that back onto my notes again and sent that out when I sent this agenda out to you today. Again, I don't know that there's any need to comment on it now, but Campbell Durant did say that municipalities should begin to prepare for the new legal requirements. And I guess it would be pretty much up to this committee and or the mayor and or council as a whole as to how you go about doing that. I just wanted to serve that as a reminder to you. That's all I really have to say.
Thank you, Steve. Next, we have utility, other bills, volunteer fire department. Tom, would you like to talk now about the roof that's coming up? Or Tim, one of you?
Yeah, I think he was doing our chief's report, but he can do it now if you want to.
Oh, it doesn't matter to me.
Yeah, he can go ahead.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, the two-story, we're talking about the two-story part of the fire station here, and the roof is 34 years old. We have a bunch of serious leaks on the gutters. When the contractors were out giving us quotes on the public works roof, looking at it, I grabbed a couple of them and I just said, hey, give me a rough idea about the gutters on the firehouse roof over there on the second story. And both of them mentioned, they says, you know, how old are your shingles up there? And I said, well, they're over 30 years old. I didn't know exactly, but I found out and I looked it up and they're 34 years old. They recommend doing the shingles and the gutters at the same time. I've checked with Wendy, and in the fire service fee money, there's enough money in there to cover that. But we would have to put it out to bid. So I didn't know, you know, if you folks would okay it, maybe we could have Dave prepare specs for putting the roof on plus the gutters. I think what I'd like to do is if it comes back real high and we don't have enough money, then at least just do the gutters then.
Can I ask, what was a rough estimate you had?
Well, the rough estimate on just the gutters, I had an estimate of 18,000, and then I had another estimate of both at right around 49,000. That 49,000 included the gutters.
Okay, and how much we have funding left in that account? Do you know?
Well, I sat down with Wendy, and after we went over all the bills for the remainder of this year, and we should have around $50,000 extra. Well, not extra, but it's left in the fund.
Yeah.
And plus, we're going to be, according to her, we're probably going to get some more money in from people that are delinquent. You know, they haven't paid yet, so it's still some trickling in yet.
So I think I'm in favor. Jack, do you have any opinion on that?
I don't see any problem with proceeding to find out what the costs are going to be and then make a decision.
Yeah. Tom, do you have an opinion?
No, yeah, I think it's a good idea. We'll go through and see what the bids are at. Like he said, somehow, if, that price isn't good, they're outrageous, we don't have enough money, and we got to go from there. But if it comes in under the amount that, we're still going to have to be able to spend, then we can get it done and get that. It's another, long-term type project out of the way.
I agree. Roof prices can be all over the place. So we should go out and look, make sure that we get a good roof for a good price.
All right.
Okay.
That's it with number 2. EMS report. I don't think there's anyone here from WHEMS. So now the chief's report. Jim, do you have any report? I guess I stole your thunder now. You're mute.
Okay, yeah, there's another, the report was sent up to you folks from the fire department. So other than that, I really don't have anything else.
It's attached to your notes at the end.
I saw it. Chuck, do you have a report?
Yes.
Thanks, Jim.
All I wanted to report on was the continuing efforts on the Ardmore for this roadway to be completed. My officers have been down there 2 at a time in some cases, for 24 hours at a time, dealing with the rebuild on Ardmore between Lenox and Avenue B, and past Vincent's and down to the viaduct. So hopefully, I think we're pretty close to the end of this now. They've done a lot of the catch basins and they've put in the curbing. So hopefully the road will be open at least on our end here soon. The only issue we are going to have here in the near future is in about another 4 weeks or maybe less, they're going to come in and put the final coat of this asphalt on, and that's going to create again some fairly large delays since they'll be doing both sides. Hopefully they're going to work like they did in the past and work overnight to try to finish this job as well, because there is substantial difference in the traffic flow between the middle of the night and the middle of the day. So again, I just want to warn all of our residents and everyone that there are going to be delays, and there has been some difficulty. Fortunately, we haven't had any issues with road rage or any accidents or anything like that, because we have had police out there to manage some of that traffic. But again, patience is a virtue in this case, and hopefully this will be passing soon and we can move on to some normalcy. That's all I have this evening.
Okay. We actually have a 0.6, so I would like your opinion. So I will skip 0.5 temporarily. On point, we have residents complaining about Bevington between Cascade and Ardmore, that it's like, like people are parking there and it's kind of restricting traffic. And in my mind, Bevington is kind of becoming like a shortcut for lots of people. And having people parked there to slow down traffic is actually a good thing. I don't think we want to, like the residents suggested, we should have no parking in that 2 block between Cascade and Ardmore to unrestrict traffic. What's your opinion on that? Because I think parked cars and slow down traffic is a good thing. It shouldn't be a shortcut. What's your opinion on that?
Well, I can tell you that we do have a 2 to 6 parking situation there where you're not allowed to park on that particular roadway between 2 a.m. and 6 a.m.
Yes.
So there shouldn't be any cars there, or there probably or have been tagged. However, in the daytime, people do park their vehicles there. And again, I mean, I think the resident mentioned that everyone has a driveway, but again, that's their choice, whether they want to pull their car into the driveway or not. So again, if you want to change the parking regulations, that would have to be something the council would have to decide.
I want to know your opinion. In my mind, having cars parked there slows down traffic, which is a good thing. In my mind, it's actually a public safety. It's actually a good thing in terms of public safety to allow parking during the day there, because it slows down traffic. It shouldn't be like a major through road anyway. What's your opinion on?
I don't think there's that many cars that create that much of a problem there, especially in the daytime and in the evening. A lot of people do use their driveways. And again, again, your point is valid in that it does happen to slow people down, but I think the resident was concerned about the fact that he's walking or has dogs or whatever, and he's walking down the street and he's having some difficulty maybe because there are other, there's other traffic coming off. But I think, again, as you said, this may be a temporary issue only because the Ardmore, when they see a backup on the Ardmore, they decide to maybe cut off there and down that way to miss some of the traffic. This may be a temporary situation. And maybe, again, if we have a little time, maybe it'll be okay. I can't tell you one way or the other. I don't know if it's going to slow them down for sure or not. And I don't know if there's enough here to make some changes either. But we have an unusual situation right now. Ardmore's been kind of slowed down by this traffic detail and this road work for the past couple of months. And maybe we need to let this pass before we make any hasty decisions whether we want to change something on that roadway.
I like that.
Marcus, can I chime in here for a second? Yeah, so I want to comment on this this issue here. This is an ongoing thing. I mean, and this probably dates back to, I would say 2012 to 2014 when I was riding a bus in the town. A lot of people would park over there to catch the bus to go into town. I know that maybe town isn't so active right now, but I believe that most of those cars that are being parked there are people that are catching the bus to ride into town or ride elsewhere. That is a bus stop there at the bottom of the hill. So I believe that is where the congestion's coming from. And I think the neighbors are now finally speaking up about it. And I could be wrong, but that it would be my opinion on that matter. The second thing I wanted to bring up, and I just wanted to get clarity from Jimmy. Jimmy, you did say $18,000 is what he said for just the gutters on the fire department? And you can correct me if I'm wrong?
Yeah, that was a rough proposal.
Okay, because that I'm just going to tell you that's in the construction line of work, that is astronomical. That's not even on the right realm.
Okay. Yeah, that
so yeah, I mean we need to tread lightly with whoever that was, because yeah, that's a lot of money. I mean, you're talking about a 40 by 80 structure. This is just on the third bay, correct, where the ladder and the rescue are?
Correct.
Yeah, so that's 40 by 80, that's 120, so that's 240 linear foot of gutter. Yeah, that's we need to make sure that this is put out for bid correctly if we are going to be bidding this. And Dave, I strongly urge that from your department if we are going to go down that route, which I have no problem with. But yeah, that's 240 linear foot of gutter. I mean, you're talking $3 to $5 a linear foot for it to be installed. So that's a little over $3 to $5 a linear foot, and I'll leave it at that.
All right, thank you. So, Jack and Tom, do you have any opinions on Bevington parking?
On Bevington, I would probably say let's just let this sit for a while. Yeah, for one thing, with what's going on the boulevard, we're probably getting some rerouting of traffic. And, you know, I guess my concern is once you start down this road of not allowing cars to park on certain streets, it could just cycle out of hand, and everybody will be wanting that. So my guess would be let's let it sit for a while.
All right, Tom.
Well, I will look into the issue of vehicles parking there to maybe take a bus. We'll look at that on daylight because that would be the primary time that would be occurring. So we'll look at that as well to see. We'll run some plates there and see if they're coming back to the residence or some off location where maybe they're doing exactly that.
All right, Steve Moore, you have something.
Well, don't forget PennDOT next year is probably going to be doing those 3 culverts, including one very close to that intersection. So you're going to have something happen there with traffic or parking or one thing or another. I don't know. And they haven't showed us any plans yet, but just keep that in mind.
Good point. All right, so now I'm going back. Maybe I will write an email back to the resident, just summarizing what we just talked about. I don't think the resident is participating today. And back to the fire trucks. This is on our agenda for a while. And our last payment is coming up in March 2022. So, and I learned it takes between 12 months and 18 months to order a new fire truck. And since we have to sell our current ladder truck, we have to kind of start. So today I suggest to move that and get it started, we should write a letter of intent to the fire department, to all the line officers. And I would suggest that Tom, you be our liaison with the fire. I learned you are on the fire department truck committee anyway, that you are like our liaison with the fire department. So any opinion on that we're writing a letter to officially start that process?
Yeah, no, that sounds good if that's where we're gonna go. Yeah, I'm sure Marcus, you want to have Steve just write a letter and say this is what we're doing. If
yeah, exactly.
Want to start, working on that and getting things together.
And Jack, do you have an opinion?
No, I agree. We need to push forward.
So Steve, we would have to write a letter to the fire department, to the line officers, that we would like to start the discussion on that and the research, and that Tom would be our liaison with them. Thank you. And any other public safety items, Tom or Jack?
No, nothing from me.
All right.
Yeah, I don't have anything either, Marcus. Thank you.
Okay. I don't think we have anything. Oh, there's a resident hand showing up a hand. Steve, can you put Danielle Scott in, please? Did you hear me? We have to allow Danielle Scott to be part of the
I'm
panel.
sorry, it's not working for some reason. Frank, can you get that? Well, I don't know what
Danielle,
happened.
I just put you into the panelist area, so you are free to speak.
Thank you, Mayor.
Sorry, Danielle.
You can hear me?
There's a little. Okay,
You can hear me, right?
now we can.
Barely.
Okay, good. So I just wanted to bring up again as far as speeding on the streets, and I wanted to update as well as ask next steps. I will have a signed petition for soon. We ran into some troubles just trying to figure out how to make the signatures electronic. I have text messages from enough people, but I need to get signatures onto a petition for you. I also believe that we will have petitions from Cascade and Lennox as well, looking at potential solutions for speedings on our streets. And I don't know what the next step, I guess, is. Is this the point at which I ask for a committee, or that we?
I mean, you can just send us the petition and we can put you back on the agenda for next month on public safety. How about that? Does it give you enough time?
Or I guess what's next? Thank you.
You hear me? We can put you back on the agenda for next month, and you can email us your petitions. Did anyone hear me, or just Danielle?
Yeah, we can.
Yeah,
we can
I
hear you.
believe she responded affirmatively to your statement.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah, there's some connectivity issues with her phone. And I think she just dropped. So
We put her back on the agenda next month. And that's it for public safety.
Okay, we're done then, unless somebody had something else that we missed. I'm going to end the Zoom meeting. Next Zoom meeting is 7 o'clock next Tuesday, the 11th. We okay?
Yeah.
Good night, everybody. Have a good night.
sounds good,
Bye.
everybody.
Bye.
Good evening.
All right.